Hi Bookish Besties, my name is Brittany. This is Rescues and Reads. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you are new, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're a returning subscriber, as always, I appreciate your continued support. Thank you for returning to another video. Today it is time to do my January Book of the Month predictions. Well, my friends, it is already that time. We are about to do our first prediction video for 2025. And for January, we are in an opposite situation to that which we were in for November and December, which were very slow publishing months. But in January, it is a very large publishing month. So there are a lot of releases coming out, and I have quite a few to talk to you about here today. And full transparency, a lot of the options that I'm going to give today are going to be repeat authors for Book of the Month. There are a lot of former Book of the Month authors coming out with releases in January. So I expect to see several of these featured on Book of the Month, but hopefully some newer debut authors as well. As per usual, my predictions are going to be divided into 5 distinct genre categories, and I'm going to give you as many predictions for each category as I want, as long as all of the predictions in total do not exceed 20. We are going to start as per usual with the mystery, thriller, and horror category, and the very first book that I have is actually a debut to my knowledge. It is called The Business Trip by Jessie Garcia. This says, Stephanie and Jasmine have nothing and everything in common. The two women don't know each other, but are on the same plane. Stephanie is on a business trip, and Jasmine is fleeing an abusive relationship. After a few days, they text their friends the same exact messages about the same man, the messages becoming stranger and more erratic. And then the two women vanish. The texts go silent, the red flags go up, and the panic sets in. When Stephanie and Jasmine are each declared missing and in danger, it begs the question, who is Trent McCarthy? What did he do to these women? Or what did they do to him? Twist upon twist, layer upon layer, where nothing is as it seems, the business trip takes you on a descent into the depths of a mastermind manipulator. But who is playing who? I just thought that sounded absolutely fantastic. I would love to see a debut thriller author be featured on Book of the Month in January. I feel like a lot of the thrillers we've been seeing are from authors they have featured before, and y'all know that I do not have a problem with that. I typically love seeing repeat authors, especially ones that I love. But as I personally love to discover new authors, especially new thriller authors, this would be one that I would be very, very excited to see featured on Book of the Month. The next prediction for this category is the newest release from Allison Galen called We Are Watching. Now, they featured Allison Galen's release, The Collective, which I absolutely loved. That's how I discovered Allison Galen, so I would definitely love to see her featured on Book of the Month again. This says Meg Russo was behind the wheel when it happened. She and her husband Justin were driving their daughter Lily to Ithaca College, the family celebrating the 18-year-old music prodigy's future. Then a car swerved up beside them, the young men inside it behaving bizarrely, and Meg lost control of her own vehicle. Justin didn't survive the accident. 4 months later, Meg works to distract herself from her grief and guilt, reopening her small local bookstore. But soon after she returns to work, bizarre messages and visitors begin to arrive, with strangers threatening Meg and Lily in increasingly terrifying ways. They are obsessed with a young adult novel titled The Prophecy, which was published 30 years earlier. An online group of believers are convinced that it heralds the apocalypse, and social media posts link the book and Meg's reclusive musician father to Satanism. These conspiracy theorists vow to seek revenge on the prophecy's author, Meg. As the threats turn violent, Meg begins to suspect that Justin's death may not have been an accident. To find answers and save her daughter, her father, and herself, Meg must get to the root of these dangerous lies and find a way to face the believers head on before it's too late. So that actually sounds very, very intriguing. I didn't actually read the full synopsis of this when I did my anticipated release video, so I had no idea that this centers around people who are obsessed with the young adult novel that Meg herself wrote. That is really intriguing, so I'm interested to see how all of this ties together. I have really enjoyed Allison Galen's books, and I am excited about this one. Another repeat author we could see featured on Book of the Month is Megan Collins. She has a new release coming out called Cross My Heart. And I'm just gonna read this blurb here. It says, she has his wife's heart. The one she wants is his. The author of the family plot brings her signature taut, emotionally charged, and propulsive prose to a twisty novel about a heart transplant patient who becomes romantically obsessed with her donor's husband. So that sounds like it's going to be really, really messy. I did read The Winter Sister by Megan Collins. That was a book that they had featured on Book of the Month. Previously, I never read the family plot, so I don't have much context with regard to this author. I don't know if I would pick this up. The synopsis of this one is just not grabbing me, and I hate thrillers that revolve around unhinged women, but we will see. I know that there are some people who are anticipating this one. All right, and then this next book is by an author that I do not believe has ever been featured on Book of the Month, but I was really intrigued by the synopsis of this because it does feature a true crime podcast, and y'all know how I feel about that. But this is a book called Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. Poe Webb, host of a popular true crime podcast, invites people to anonymously anonymously confess crimes they've committed to her audience. She can't guarantee the police won't come after her guests, but her show grants simultaneous anonymity and instant fame. After an episode recording, Poe usually erases both criminal and crime from her mind. But when a strange and oddly familiar man appears on her show, Poe is forced to take a second look. Not only because he claims to be her mother's murderer from years ago, but because Poe knows something no one else does. Her mother's murderer is dead. She killed him. From the USA Today bestselling author of The Dead Girl in 2A and The New Neighbor comes a chilling new thriller that forces the question, are murderers always the bad guy? I'm really interested in this because we have a podcast host who believes that she killed her mother's murderer, but now there's someone claiming to be her mother's murderer. So did she get it wrong, or is this person lying? I am really intrigued by this one. I have never read anything from this author before, but I think this one is going on my TBR. And the final book that I have for this category is a book called Clever Little Thing by Helena Eklund. Charlotte's daughter Stella is sensitive and brilliant, perhaps even a genius, but a recent change in her behavior has alarmed her mother. Following the sudden death of Stella's babysitter Blanca, the once disruptive and antisocial child has become docile and agreeable. But what's unsettling is that she has begun to mirror Blanca's personality, from Blanca's repetitive phrases to her accent to fierce cravings for Armenian meat stew after being raised a vegetarian. Charlotte is pregnant with her second child and depleted and sick with the pregnancy. She is convinced that Blanca herself is somehow responsible for Stella's transformation. How could Blanca, dead, still be entwined in their lives? Has Blanca somehow possessed Stella? Has Stella become Blanca? As Charlotte becomes increasingly obsessed, she is sure she is the only one that can save her daughter, even though it's soon clear that her husband believes this is all in Charlotte's head. Y'all know how I feel about creepy kids in books. I don't love them. I don't love books that solely center around children, but I thought that this sounded interesting, and Book of the Month does not shy away from featuring books that do have that creepy kid aspect to it, so I think that this could be a very top contender. All right, moving on into the romance category. The first one that I have is a book called The Lodge by Kayla Olson. Kayla Olson would be a repeat author for Book of the Month. This says Alex Morgan just got her big break as the ghostwriter of a memoir by Sebastian Green, a former member of the boy band True North. And when he offers her a penthouse at a luxurious resort in Vermont, she jumps at the chance to work far away from her noisy, cramped apartment. Her career as an entertainment journalist has been building toward this dream job. After all, she used to cover True North and was one of the last people to interview former frontman Jet Beckett before he disappeared. As she combs through her clients' voice memos, the specter of the missing lead singer remains, and fans are desperate to know the full story. But Alex also has time for some fun at this glamorous resort, where she begins ski lessons with a handsome instructor named Tyler. As Alex and Tyler fall in love on the slopes, Alex's work takes a complicated turn, and the mystery of True North's downfall may be hers to solve. So this is a romance, but it also sounds like there's going to be a little bit of a mystery aspect thrown in here because there's a missing boy band member. So I'm a little bit intrigued by this one, but I'm not entirely sure. This seems like it's going to be more on the rom-com side, and that's not typically something that I gravitate towards. I've never read anything from this author. Like I said, she would be a repeat author, and that's what makes me think that she would be featured on Book of the Month again in January. Another repeat author that we have coming out is Lauren Kung Jessen with her new book Yin Yang Love Song. This says Chinese herbalist Chrissy Hua Williams never actually believed in the Hua family curse, but after breakup number 9, Chrissy stopped laughing. Now she and her aunties run a special healing retreat center for the brokenhearted. After all, there's nothing a proper cup of herbal tea can't fix. But Chrissy's innocent run-in with celebrity cellist and bad boy Vin Chow has everyone brewing about a different kind of tea. So he offers her a deal. They'll fake date, he'll break her heart and increase ticket sales, and in return, he'll promote her business. It's like Chrissy's whole cursed love life has been leading up to this moment, but all it takes is one kiss and a whole lot of unexpected chemistry to land both of them in hot water. So we have the very traditional fake dating situation going on here. Obviously, they are going to fall in love at the end of it. Another author that I'm not familiar with, but again, she would be a repeat author, so I would not be surprised to see her on Book of the Month in January. All right, and then the final book that I have for this category is one I selected because it's supposed to be for fans of Ali Hazelwood, as it features a woman in STEM. It is a book called Give Me Butterflies by Jillian Meadows. It says Millie has never taken the expected path. Her childhood love for bugs and science led her to entomology, and her role as a curator inspiring museum visitors every day. It's her dream to run her own department, so when a rare director position opens, she is determined nothing will distract her from her goal, especially not Finn, her grumpy coworker with his permanent scowl, electric blue eyes, and endless supply of astronomy ties. Not that she spent time noticing any of those things. Finn doesn't mean to glare at everyone, but he's juggling his role at the museum, navigating the grief of losing his sister, attempting to make his nieces smile, and trying not to ruin dinner for the 5th night in a row. He can't afford to let anything slip and certainly doesn't need more to deal with, especially not Millie, literally stumbling into him with her bright smile and sunny optimism. He bugs her. She's too starry-eyed for him. Okay, we've got some puns going on here. They want nothing to do with each other, but with Finn on the interview committee, avoidance is impossible, and Millie soon realizes it's one thing when a job is on the line, it's quite another when it's her heart. So I just thought that sounded really really sweet. It has a lot of tropes that are really popular these days. We're definitely going to have like a grumpy sunshine situation going on here. Maybe even a little bit of a hate to love. I'm not entirely sure, but this definitely sounds like it's cute, perfect for fans of Ali Hazelwood, like I said. And this is one that I could consider picking up just because I do tend to enjoy Ali Hazelwood. All right, moving on into the literary / contemporary fiction category, we of course have the newest release by Charmaine Wilkerson called Good Dirt. Black Cake was previously featured on Book of the Month with a lot of success, so I definitely think this is probably the biggest top contender for this category. I did go more into detail about this book within my anticipated release video, so I'm not going to read the synopsis here. I'll just read this blurb that says, "The daughter of an affluent Black family pieces together the connection between a childhood tragedy and a beloved heirloom in this moving novel from the New York Times bestselling author of Black Cake." I never read Black Cake, but I heard amazing things about it, and I'm really intrigued by the synopsis of this one. So this is certainly one I'm excited and hope to see on Book of the Month in January. A repeat author that I believe we could definitely see on Book of the Month in January in this category is Emily Austin. She has a new release coming out called We Could Be Rats, and her Interesting Facts About Space book was also just recently featured on Book of the Month. So again, another top contender for this category. This says, Sigrid hates working at the Dollar Pal, but having always resisted the idea of growing up into the trappings of adulthood, she did not graduate high school, preferring to roam the streets of her small town with her best friend Greta, the only person in the world who ever understood her. Her older sister Margit is baffled and frustrated by Sigrid's inability to conform to the expectations of polite society, but Sigrid's detachment veils a deeper turmoil and sensitivity. She's haunted by the pains of her past, from pretending her parents were smart monsters when they shook the floorboards with their violent arguments, to grappling with losing Greta's friendship to the opioid epidemic ravaging their town. As Margit sets out to understand Sigrid and the secrets she has hidden, both sisters in their own time and way discover that reigniting their shared childhood imagination is the only way forward. So this certainly sounds like it's going to be a story of family. It's going to be a story about siblings and those complicated sibling dynamics. Two very different sisters are kind of going to reunite and come closer and try to work through some things from their past. This again is another author that I've never read from before. She seems to be a pretty well-regarded author, as Book of the Month has featured her before as well, and I believe Interesting Facts About Space got some pretty good reviews. So again, be on the lookout for this one in January. Another repeat author, Tracy Lange, is coming out with a new release in January called What Happened to the McCraes. I believe her last two releases were featured on Book of the Month, so I have no reason to believe that this one will not be featured as well. This says, when Kyle McCrae gets word his father has suffered a debilitating stroke, he returns to his hometown of Potsdam, New York, where he doesn't expect a warm welcome. Kyle left suddenly 2.5 years ago, abandoning people who depend on him, his father, his employees, his friends, not to mention Casey, his wife of 16 years and a beloved teacher in town. He plans to lie low and help his dad recuperate until he can leave again, especially after Casey makes it clear she wants him gone. The longer he's home, the more Kyle understands the impact his departure has had on the people he left behind. When he's presented with an opportunity for redemption as the coach of the floundering middle school hockey team, he begins to find compassion in unexpected places. Kyle even considers staying in Potsdam, but that's only possible if he and Casey can come to some kind of peace with each other. So again, another story from Tracy Lange containing complicated family dynamic. I did read We Are the Brennans, and I really enjoyed that one for the most part. It's not anything that made a lasting impression, but I know a lot of people are big fans of her stories, so be on the lookout for this one in January. Now, this next one I'm featuring here, because I have an inkling it's going to be featured. That's what I've heard. I've heard rumors going around about this, but I don't believe this author has ever been featured on Book of the Month in the past, and that is Lisa Genova. Lisa Genova is known for writing very hard-hitting stories about people facing incredible medical diagnoses. I believe she herself is a doctor. I think she might be like a neurosurgeon or something like that, and so she incorporates her past experience into her books. I've only read one book by her. It was about ALS, so I know that she's very, very well loved, and like I said, I've heard rumors that this one is going to be featured. The new book is called More or Less Maddie. It says Maddie Banks is just like any other stressed out freshman at NYU. Between schoolwork, exams, navigating life in the city, and a recent breakup, it's normal to be feeling overwhelmed. It doesn't help that she's always felt like the odd one out in her picture-perfect Connecticut family. But Maddie's latest low is devastatingly low, and she goes on an antidepressant. She begins to feel good, dazzling in fact, and she soon spirals high into a wild and terrifying mania that culminates in a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. As she struggles to find her way in this new reality, navigating the complex effects bipolar has on her identity, her relationships, and her life dreams, Maddie will have to figure out how to manage being both too much and not enough. With her signature deep empathy and insight, Harvard-trained neuroscientist and New York Times bestselling author Lisa Genova has crafted another profoundly moving novel that makes complicated mental health issues accessible and human. So like I said, very hard-hitting as these characters are dealing with very difficult diagnoses, and I think she does it really, really well. So this is certainly one that I would not be surprised to see featured on Book of the Month in January. And the last book that I have for this category is by a repeat author, Jonathan Evison. The book is called called The Heart of Winter. Abe Winter and Ruth Warnecki were never meant to be together, at least if you ask Ruth. Yet their catastrophic blind date in college evolved into a 70-year marriage and a life on a farm on Bainbridge Island with their hens and their beloved Labrador Megs. Through the years, the Winters have fallen in and out of lockstep, and from their haunting losses and guarded secrets, a dependable partnership has been forged. But when Ruth's loose tooth turns out to be something much more malicious, the beautiful, reliable life they've created together comes to a crisis. As Ruth struggles with her crumbling independence, Abe must learn how to take care of her while their 3 living children question his ability to look after his wife. And once again, the couple has to reconfigure how to be there for each other. In this big-hearted and profound portrait of a marriage, Jonathan Evison explores 70 years of big moments in subtle ways, elegantly braiding the Winters' turbulent history with their present-day battles, showing us how the oddly paired college kids became parents, fell apart, and back together, and grew into the Abe and Ruth of today. That just sounds like it's going to be a very heartwarming and moving, character-driven story. It says in here that it's a portrait of a marriage, and that sounds like exactly what it's going to be. If you enjoy character-driven stories, if you enjoy going through a very long 70-year marriage like this, if you've enjoyed Jonathan Evison's other releases, this might be one for you. So keep an eye out for this one in January on Book of the Month. Moving on into the historical fiction category, I only have one book to talk about, and it would be from a repeat Book of the Month author. That is Fiona Davis with her newest release called The Stolen Queen. Egypt, 1936. When anthropology student Charlotte Cross is offered a coveted spot on an archaeological dig in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, she leaps at the opportunity, that is, until an unbearable tragedy strikes. New York City, 1978. 19-year-old Annie Jenkins is thrilled when she lands an opportunity to work for former Vogue fashion editor Diana Vreeland, who's in the midst of organizing the famous Met Gala hosted at the museum and known across the city as Party of the Year. Meanwhile, Charlotte is now leading a quiet life as the associate curator of the Met's celebrated Department of Egyptian Art. She's consumed by her research on Hathercare, a rare female pharaoh dismissed by most other Egyptologists as unimportant. The night of the gala, one of the Egyptian art collection's most valuable artifacts goes missing, and there are signs Hathorcare's legendary curse might be reawakening. Annie and Charlotte team up to search for the missing antiquity, and a desperate hunch leads the unlikely duo to one place Charlotte swore she'd never return, Egypt. But if they have any hope of finding the artifact, Charlotte will need to confront the demons of her past, which may mean leading them both directly into danger. So it seems like there's going to be a lot going on here. This is definitely historical in nature because there's a perspective from Egypt in 1936, but it also sounds like there's going to be a little bit of a mystery with the stolen artifact. They have to return to Egypt, and it sounds like Charlotte's going to have to face some things from her past. So is this going to pack a lot into the book? I didn't really enjoy the other Fiona Davis that I read, so I don't necessarily know if I would be picking this up, even though I absolutely love ancient Egyptian history, but I do have a feeling that she would be featured on Book of the Month again, so that's why I mentioned her here. Alright, and then moving on into the final category of fantasy, sci-fi, and magical realism, I only have 2 books to talk to you about, but they are both kind of along the same lines and they give me similar vibes to one another. These are both books that I talked about in my anticipated releases, so I'm not going to dive too heavily into them here. But the first one, of course, is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. This is one of my most anticipated releases of 2025. I am absolutely dying to get to this. I do actually have this for the selection for my Paw Prints and Prose book club and my Patreon, so if this is selected, I will also be definitely getting to it in January, and I am extremely excited about it. This blurb just says, a woman investigates her twin brother's mysterious death while confronting the ghosts of her own haunted past. And I don't need to know anything more about this. This is Adrienne Young. I've absolutely adored her 2 other adult releases. Very excited about this one, and I'm going to add it to my box so quickly if it is featured. And then this last one is The Vanishing of Josephine Reynolds by Jennifer Moorman. This is another one that I featured in that anticipated release video, and one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to it so much is because it is giving me Adrienne Young vibes. So if I remember correctly, this follows our main character, Josephine Reynolds. She is going back to her childhood home and she's going to like renovate it, and she finds the original door in a salvage yard, and when she gets everything like put back together, the door actually takes her back in time to the Jazz Age where she meets a relative of hers. And shortly after she goes back to her time, that relative dies, and it really changes history, including Josephine's own timeline. So she has to try to figure things out so that she can avoid being erased herself. I absolutely love that so much. This is very much giving me June Farrow vibes with regard to like the time travel, and I'm here for it because I really love the synopsis of this one. All right, everybody, that is it. Those are some of the books that I think could potentially be featured on Book of the Month in January as either their curated monthly selections or as add-on selections. As per usual, if you think there are any other releases that could be featured on Book of the Month, please be sure to leave that information in the comments below so people can check that out. Or if you've made it to the end of this video and you are not feeling chatty, go ahead and leave me some kind of sea/ocean emoji in honor of A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. And as always, if you like this video or if you just like me, please be sure to give this a big thumbs up. Throughout the month of December, from December 1st through December 25th, I'm aiming to post 1 video a day leading up to Christmas. And if you don't want to miss any of that content, content or chaos, please be sure to subscribe down below. I would love to connect with you in any of those future videos or on any of my other social media platforms or on my newly released Patreon, which you can all find linked down below. And until next time, y'all, bye.